Welcome back to another episode of the Better Than I Found It podcast, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. My guest today is Kelsey Cline, former University of Oklahoma golfer, who also is a mentor to Talor Gooch, a good friend of Taylor's. Talor played golf for me at Oklahoma State and is competing in this week's PGA Championship at Southern Hills. Kelsey is a very, very interesting guy with a lot of great stories and a lot of actually great experiences in the game of golf that I think you're going to find interesting. I hope you enjoy the listen. Welcome back, everybody, to the Better Than I Found It podcast, the podcast all things college golf. I've got a special guest today, Kelsey Cline, good friend of mine for, Kelsey, how long has it been?
Well, I'm 44 now. We probably met when I was 11 or 12.
That's about right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's a long time. You can't be 44. Tell me that ain't so.
Well, some days I feel 64, and there'll be a sprinkle in a couple days in there. I feel 24, but yeah, Lord willing, I'll see 64. But yes, I'm 44.
I haven't played with you in a while. You still hitting that butter cut right down the middle fairway finder?
It's still a cut, but it just doesn't find as many fairways as it used to, but that's okay.
Well, no, it isn't. You don't hit it 310. It needs to find fairways.
Right. No, I don't. I've tried to figure out how to hit it 310, and unless it's downwind and it's a firm fairway, it's just not in the cards for me.
You know, I walked with Johnny Kiefer this week. He played as an individual at Norman in the regional, and It just occurred to me that I never even thought about hitting it like he does. I mean, I didn't even think it was a thing. And he's just one of many, many out there that they absolutely hit it over 300 yards, no problem. And they're fit and they're just in shape. And it's just a different game. It really is.
It's what's the right way to say it? It's wonderful and fabulous on one hand. And then, like you say, when you kind of step back and think about it, I actually played in a two-man best ball with my best buddy, Mark Van Hoos, this last weekend on what we call the barbecue tour, which consists of 4 or 5 two-man events throughout the summer. And there was a couple of guys that we played with. Sevenwood from 250, driver on the front of a green on a par 4 that's, 310 to the front edge type stuff. And, I'm popping my 5-wood off the tee, trying to get, sand wedge in my hand. And, the length now, it's not like it's 2 or 3 guys. It's 20 or 30 or 40 guys, at certain tournaments or courses that you go to. And if they all putted like you, I guess they would all be here in Tulsa this week.
How many people get to putt like me? I want to know. That's just not very many, right?
So if I've been around golf 34 years, who putts like you? The first one that comes to mind would be Hunter Haas, my college best friend and roommate. Played the tour, played the Korn Ferry or Web Tour at the time. Number 1 amateur in the world for a stint after winning the Pub Link semifinals, the amateur. Geez. I mean, I didn't see him a lot, but the legend Bill Woodley might be in there.
Oh, Bill.
With it, I mean, if you talk to guys that played for him or were around him at all, I think Bill might be in that conversation. But other than you three, for me, that's about it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's a pretty tall company right there. I'm pretty happy. But, I do work for a living, so apparently I wasn't that good a putter. But, you said our relationship goes back about 34 years. That's about right. You were about 32 years. You were about 11 or 12. We were playing against junior golf tournaments against players that I was coaching in Edmond. So I've known you that long, and I'm going to ask you a question. You had a San Diego Padres hat with a fishing hook on it that you had for probably 7 or 8 years, and you taped it up with masking tape and when it was falling apart. Do you still have that?
My mom says that it's in her attic and in some sort of Tupperware, and that long. Obviously, the way hats are made, as we all know, they're built to fail, so you'll buy new ones. But I think I ended up sewing the back of it with fishing line, or my mom did, because it split up the back. Because obviously, wearing it in the summer playing golf, you sweat through it. And I tell you what, if that thing's still around up there in that Tupperware, it probably smells like a dead body. So I think we'll just leave that one lie.
Well, I just remember it was chocolate brown, San Diego
Yes.
Padres, and you just wore it all the time. I couldn't believe it, but it was your distinct mark, sort of like Payne Stewart with the little cap. And but anyway, I just wondered if that was, I hadn't asked you if that was still around, but you played a lot of junior golf against guys that I coached, and you had a pretty good rivalry with one of my players at Edmond North, Tosh Hayes, who now teaches and still lives in Edmond. But let's talk back to a day in 1994. I was coaching at Edmond North, and we were playing the Metro Conference tournament over in Choctaw, Oklahoma. And two things happened that day. One, you won the conference championship individually, beat every one of my players.
Luckily.
Well, not luckily. I think that was skill. And then my team lost to UConn in a playoff. And I remember Mike McKee was the coach at UConn, and that was his only conference championship. And it was the only time I ever lost one in coaching high school golf. And you won the individual title that day. So I went home with my tail between my legs, didn't have an individual win, didn't have the team win. You did that to me a lot. How many high school tournaments did you win in Oklahoma?
Well, to speak on that conference tournament, Coach, and your memory is better than mine, even though you got a few years on me, I believe that would have been Jason Wood that went on to play at SNU.
Yep.
That would have been Mac Renner that went to ECU, would have been Doug Dixon that went to ECU, would have been Brock. What was Brock's name? Skinny, blonde-headed Brock. And the last name is slipping my – and I think he went to East Central as well. And the fifth man, was it Jason Lee? Or did he already graduate?
Was there. Jason was there.
And if anybody listening, if I messed that up, or any of the old golfing buddies from UConn, if you were in that top five, we apologize. But I think that was it. And still keep in touch with a couple of those guys. But, high school tournaments, how many did I win? Well, one I know that I did not win was that same year in 94, and the state tournament was at my home course at Westbury, back before it kind of started to go on the decline. Michael Boyd obviously went on to Tulsa and actually played the tour, a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
He managed to come into Westbury and mop the ground with all of us. And then Frank Ginzer from Jinx that went on to play at Wichita State.
He did.
Was second. And then, I smile. One of my former teammates at OU from Bartlesville, Chance Cosby, we were in a playoff for third. And to be honest, I don't really know why we played off for third. But I clipped Chance in that playoff. And when I got to OU, as the freshman and not knowing what I was doing, Chance was pretty hard on me. But as time goes and you learn, Chance did a lot for me. He taught me a lot. And obviously, he's gone on to be a huge success in business and in his life, marriage, father, all the good stuff with Ping and now with the Thunderbirds. So Chance was in that playoff with third. But the thing I remember most about that part of it, Teddy Smith, who played for you. No, he played at Ed Memorial. And his best buddy, Paul Bruner, were in a playoff with us because they were playing off for a spot to see who made All-State. Well, as we know, Teddy was going to probably be the player of the year and get in no problem. So we're sitting there, and Teddy's got about 130 yards out on the first hole, and I see that he's got out 7-iron. And I'm like, no, wait a minute here. Teddy's fixing to hit this thing, in the creek over the green, and he hit the ball about 60 yards over the green and blew the hole, and Paul was All-State. Teddy was obviously, was voted All-State. And I think walking up to that green, Teddy looked over at me and just kind of gave me a wink and a smile, and then it hit me when we got done what he was doing. I would say he took one for his buddy, and he took one for the team, and being Paul Bruner, and everyone made All-State, so it worked out. So that's a little 1994 state tournament tidbit for you.
I had never knew that. That was the first year I wasn't coaching at Memorial. I was over at North, so I didn't coach Teddy and Paul that year. I'd never heard that story. Wow.
Yeah, that 7-iron was still climbing when it went over the pin.
Yeah, Teddy, he probably hit a pitching wedge or maybe even a sand wedge that far in those days. He was a big kid. So
that's right.
Okay, so 1994, you graduated in 1996 from Mustang High, and you went to University of Oklahoma to play college golf. That was probably something that was destined. You were always going to be an Oklahoma Sooner. Am I right about that?
Well, yes, but as most kids in our state early on, I wanted to be the quarterback. As my story to tell it, I played quarterback in seventh and eighth grade. We never won a game, which, that's not the important part. As I remember it, I was dropping back to pass in eighth grade, and what looked like and felt like about a 30-year-old eighth grader DN from Choctaw, from Chickasha hit me, and I went down and broke my wrist. And what I would later go on to tell my buddy Sam that ended up playing at OU, it stunted my growth, it stunted my strength, it sent me on a whole path to where I wanted to play basketball at OU. And I figured out after a short time that I was probably too short and slow and uncoordinated to get there playing basketball. And so the third option was golf. I'd always loved golf, but, I grew up in Westbury around older kids that would let me play in the competition side of it. So in that seventh, eighth, ninth grade area, I got tired of getting beat all the time. So I quit everything and started to focus on golf. And, looking back, and Coach, as the fact that I was able to do that and get to OU doing that, and the friendships and the relationships, the memories, the golf, but also just the friendships that have lasted and that what had turned into, other things that we'll talk about it, one of the biggest blessings of my life. And I'm very thankful that I was able to do that. Coach Greg Roast at the time gave me the opportunity to do that. And so, again, just very fortunate to do that.
Well, it's great when a kid can chase a dream and all of that. And it's a good thing you didn't chase football and basketball, because obviously you wouldn't have gotten as far in those two areas. But you mentioned casually my buddy Sam. Well, I think people out there need to know it's not so casual. It's a future Heisman Trophy winner that you're talking about, Sam Bradford.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it went, but our parents met when we were both, he was very young and I was still, 10 or 12 in that area. His mom actually was my grade school PE teacher, along with another gal whose name was Miss Dacus. I do remember that. But when Sam came to college and we reconnected through life, and we had stayed in touch a little bit through the years with him following my golf and then me following him being good at everything in high school, as if you remember right.
Mm-hmm.
I knew enough to know in the situation that he was going to be in that, the football and the college was going to be one area of his life. And he was probably going to need a release outside of that quote unquote circus that OU football was and can be. And, we just developed a friendship that started very young that, kind of reconnected when he came to college through golf, playing a lot of golf, meals, that kind of thing. And someone he could trust that was a little bit older, and, it just blossomed into a friendship that, still lasts to this day. He's now married with children and a fabulous wife that met through golf, go figure. And it's been, like I said, one of those things that it really started with golf, I would say, because me being in Norman when he got there and having gone through what I had gone through and seen a few things with Nate Hibble, Coach Hibble's brother, who played quarterback at OU and, went through some up and down times, and he and I were friends, and what I got to see and kind of understand how to navigate. I hope I helped Sam through that time. But like I said, a friendship that rekindled and has lasted till now, and Lord willing, another 40 years. And sure proud of what he accomplished, in high school, obviously in college, and as a pro as well.
Yeah, Sam, to me, is one of the classiest superstars. I mean, he was a Heisman Trophy winner, for heaven's sakes. But really classy, really great guy. And I'll never forget the day that you brought Sam to Karsten Creek, and you and Sam played with Ricky Fowler and I, 18 holes at Karsten Creek. And I do remember Sam, I think, shooting 1 under on the last 6 holes. Is that correct in my memory?
Well, first of all, I do believe we won that match, because
you and I did. We won.
Was it me and Sam, or was it you and Ricky?
I think it was.
I thought it was Sam and I playing, you and Ricky. I mean, it's been 13 years, so it's okay if we forget.
Well, I was just enjoying the camaraderie. It was just a lot of fun. I hadn't played golf with you since 1996, so there'd been a while since we played golf. And
Quail
Ricky,
Creek.
yeah,
Yep.
Quail Creek. Yeah, I had 23 putts that day, by the way, if you'll recall.
Yes, you did.
I probably hit about 4 greens, but who cares? Who's counting? But no, you brought Sam up there. I can't really remember the match, but as much as I remember Sam on holes 13 through 18 being 1 under par, and I thought, this guy can't play from the back tees at Carson Creek and be 1 under par for a 6-hole stretch? How did he do that? And Ricky probably was standing on 1 foot and shot 68 or something.
I believe that's correct. And, as people who are talented and have what you would call athletic prowess, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but no, that wouldn't strike me as odd at all if Sam was 1 under on the last 6 holes. I was probably out of balls by then, but it was a great day.
Well, I've still got that photo, so I'll always keep that.
I do too. I was going to say, if you don't have it, I'll send it to you. I've still got it as well. Back in our younger years, if you will.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I was in my 50s, so that's not that long ago. So, you and I obviously have had a good relationship for a long time, and I've always appreciated that. But we've also had a relationship that kind of overlapped people that we knew people that we knew, both of us knew.
Right.
One is playing, both of them, actually, the two I want to talk about are playing in the PGA Championship this week at Southern Hills. Today is Friday when we're recording this of the PGA, and Taylor, I think, is in 13th place, Talor Gooch, and Ricky Fowler in about 25th to 28th, something like that. Still a lot of golfers on the golf course today. But let's talk real quick about your relationship with Taylor, because I probably knew about Taylor because of you. I think you told me about him and you said you should watch him. He was only a 7th grader, by the way, but talk to me about how you got connected with Taylor and how that all came about.
Okay. Well, that's a story that I've been asked a lot through his last 3 or 4 years of success, now in his 5th year on tour. And again, through golf and me getting to OU, when I got done with college, I traveled the mini tours for a couple years, but in 2002, I was 24. And when I would come off the mini tours, I played out at Jimmy Austin where I'd played in college. Always wanted to help out and give back to the juniors and stay in good graces with the shop. And so I was helping with a clinic, and I get down to the team end and they're doing a bunker drill. And as you know, Coach, from your time back in junior golf, there's certain sounds that you hear come out of bunkers, and I'm standing behind the bunker, and I hear the thin balls, I hear the fat ones, I hear all the stuff that we know about, and then I hear the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember who I was talking with. Maybe at the time it was Stan Ball that was running the place, or maybe somebody else that was helping out with the clinic. And I look up and I said, now who's this short, fat white kid here? What is this? Because he's hitting a couple more and you hear the sound, which is a coach or a player. If anybody's watched a tour event or been around a really good player at their home track, the sound coming out of a bunker that most people don't make that sound.
Yep.
And that's the first time that Taylor and I met. I don't remember exactly how it all, formulated early on with cell phones. At that time, we're just kind of coming onto the scene, if you will. But as time goes and I look back, a couple of things, I didn't have a younger brother and he didn't have an older brother. And we had that common bond of golf. And I always loved to give back and try to mentor and help, because I had that through people in my life, growing up, from the guys out at Westbury that were on my high school golf team. Another gentleman that was on the high school team at UConn that went on to play at OU and UCO. I had that mentorship that was given to me. And so Taylor and I started to develop that friendship at that time when he was 10 and I was 24-ish. But, now being a parent myself, the most important thing that I can look back on in that period of time and that actually happened, and I would relate it same to, Sam in a little bit of a different way, because he was a little bit older when he got to Norman. But, when a parent allows you to be around their child, whether it be a son or daughter, and allows you to have influence and travel and caddy and do all the things that Taylor and I were able to do, as a parent now myself, I have a 3-year-old son and a baby daughter on the way in September. My wife, Haley, and I do, their parents, and for this part of it, Ron and Amber Gooch allowed me to be around Taylor. They allowed me to spend time with him, caddy, and then through his, college years, I lived in St. Louis with Sam during the season, helping him. And in the summer, we had a charity event that benefited St. Jude, but I had a lot of downtime. So it worked out perfectly. Looking back, I was able to caddy U.S. amateurs and pub links and state amateurs and, some of those things, and it allowed us to formulate and continue to grow that relationship, to help to where it is now. But again, Ron and Amber allow me to be a part of that from the start, whatever they saw in me or whatever the reason was, 20 years later, I'm so appreciative of that. So
I think the reason is parents are constantly, they realize they can't raise the child by themselves, and they need good mentors in their kids' lives. And I think when they see one that's not only a good mentor, but somebody who can help him with his golf game a little bit too, I mean, that's like a double bonus right there. And so I want to say thanks, first of all, for even telling me about him, because I'm probably not, I probably would have overlooked him early on, but at least I got to see him when he was in the 7th grade. And it was pretty certain in my mind that I needed to recruit the boy. I thought, right, I need to do this. And you were right about that. And he turned out to be every bit as good as you said he would be. So that's great. He's playing well this week in the PGA. You're going to get to watch him.
He is. We actually, his wife, Allie, and he started a foundation. We'll call it in January of this year. And he asked me to help with that. I've always told him I would do that if it's something he wanted to do to help those less fortunate kids. And so we actually have a foundation event, our first one at Tulsa Country Club on Monday after the PGA, a Pro-Am style event, to raise funds for the foundation, and then obviously to give to groups in Oklahoma City. And so I've been back and forth. Came to watch him Tuesday, got to walk a practice round with him right down the middle, which was great. 9 holes. Played with his best buddy, Max Homa, Patrick Cantlay, and Xander Schauffele. So as a foursome, couldn't probably get much better of a day to walk and see the new Southern Hills. I hadn't seen it. I only saw the back 9, but kudos to everybody that was involved in the redesign. And as you know, Kerry Cosby, who is the director of golf, played at OU along with his 2 brothers, Chance and Craig, before me. First class family. They all do first class work in their respective fields. And tell you what, Southern Hills looks fantastic. I look forward to getting out tomorrow and watching the round tomorrow. I think we're going to have some of what I would call Oklahoma normal May weather with some north winds and some a little bit chillier temperatures. So, as you know, when you hit like Taylor, I always say the harder the better. I hope it blows, and I hope it blows sideways.
I got to tell you, he's played enough golf in that kind of weather. That would be a huge advantage for him. I mean, he's still got to hit the shots. You still have to, still not easy, but he's been there enough. He's seen that. So I'm excited for his opportunity this week. One of the things that I really, really am excited about as a coach is Taylor is way, way more mature now. And I know that's a natural thing, but Taylor's come along like just unbelievable the way he's matured as a human, as a dad, as a husband, as a professional golfer. Just in the time that I've known him since he was a freshman in college. And I knew him before that, but I certainly wasn't coaching him before that. So yeah, I'm really impressed by that. I know you've had a little bit to do with helping him along that path. So good job.
I appreciate that. And like I said, it's been as much as I hope I've helped him, as you know, Coach, giving back and trying to be there for somebody else and help their path. Coaching is, what you've done for X number of years now. It's more rewarding than playing myself or anything that I've done on the golf course. To be able to help's been the most rewarding situation for me.
Yeah. In fact, you're helping him with a foundation that's going to help other people. Well, that's like a real bonus for you.
Sure. I mean, to help him and his wife, Allie, along that, and then obviously to help kids from a financial standpoint, to give them opportunity. It doesn't get any better than that for me.
So we mentioned that you're a coach essentially, Kelsey. You've been one for a long time, but I'm a coach, obviously. But I look back at that and I think about what do coaches add to our lives, and so this part of what this podcast is about is I occasionally have coaches on here. And as far as I'm concerned, you are one, but you had 2 different college coaches. And so while none of us are perfect, and I'm not, I know not everybody's always going to say, oh, Mike McGraw, everything he did was perfect for me. But I always like to feel like when a kid spends 4 years with me, that he's going to be able to look back on it and say there was something there that he could glean from our time together that would make their lives better. So Greg Gross was your first coach at OU, and your second was Jim Reagan. So tell me what one main thing you think you got from either or both of those guys.
Obviously Greg was my coach for 3 years, actually 4 because I redshirted.
Right.
I go back when I was in middle school, I actually went to the Oklahoma golf camp. And so Greg, I mean, I'm sure at some point he had to write me off on his taxes because he half helped raise me. I probably went to the OU golf camp 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, some kind of formula of that. So I go back with Greg. Golly, I got to high school in 92. So let's call it 1990.
You got to the high school in 96.
Right. I got done with high school, but I went to junior camp. I went to his golf camp probably as a 6th grader.
Yeah.
So let's call that 1990. Greg, as we all know, is a very unique individual. And I mean that respectfully and in a very, loving, positive way. I can't help but smile when someone brings his name up. I apologize if I get a little choked up because you look back, and especially when I coached at Oklahoma Christian for 2 years, fall of 08 to the spring of 2010, there were a number of times when I was sitting at my desk or, maybe driving or we were on a team trip, and I would kind of have that epiphany moment of, why did I do something like this? Or why did I answer this? Or why do I care that kid's shirt's tucked in? Or why do I want my guys to have matching shoes? And I'm like, Greg, as you know, was first class. We ate like kings. We traveled great. Everybody on the team, whether it was the first man or the 15th man, had every stitch of clothes that the other guy had. But Greg, Greg loved college golf, loved his players, loved what he was doing, so much every day. And the appreciation that he had for the job, the way he treated us, he made us feel special, like it was a big deal. College golf with TV and just the popularity of golf's gotten to be a bigger deal the last, 15, 20 years. But, I would say Greg was an innovator on that kind of thing from the start with the way we dressed, the way we traveled, the way we ate, the facilities, the indoor building he raised money to build, the practice facility on the south side of the Jimmy Austin range has since been redone. But, Greg did that all right when I got to college. That stuff was being completed. And, Greg just went above and beyond to make us feel important, to have us have the best of everything, whether it was, eating the best steak or wearing the best pair of shoes or having that extra dozen balls on the road or whatever it was. He just made us feel special and important, and like what we were doing mattered. And looking back on that when I was a coach years later, I would just kind of shake my head and say, man, Greg was right again. And there was probably a couple of times I called him in there to say thank you and, hey, I understand now, or I know why you did it this way or that way. And so still appreciative of Greg. We still text. We'll talk from time to time. And as you know, he's coaching Norman High there in Norman and
Right.
working with the GCAA. I know you see him a couple times a year doing a first class job like he always has. So, it's rare you meet an individual that has the passion, the care, the love, the drive and desire to make something nice and classy as a guy like Greg has. And, looking back on that, that's probably what I appreciate the most about him.
That's
And
great.
then Coach Reagan, who I had for a year, my final year, obviously it wasn't as much time. And I tell you what, he could recruit because he recruited a lot of good players in his time there. We don't have time to go through the tee sheet, but, Coach Reagan was real big on competition, creating that amongst the team. And I think Coach Hibble's done the same thing with the way his style is. And we obviously know Coach Hibble's done a fantastic job, won regionals there at Jimmy Austin and rolling right into nationals on a hot streak. But Coach Reagan he was about competition. And like I said, I only got to play for him for a year, but they went on after my class graduated to have some success, and he recruited a lot of really, really nice players that had success in college, whether it was junior college or coming right out of high school. And obviously Anthony Kim was one of those.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when Anthony wanted to play, nobody could beat him. And you've got some stories on that. I know one about when he won in Houston, and Pablo Martin, I believe, finished second. I think AK won back-to-back tournaments that spring by eight shots both. which in college golf, as we know, probably it never had happened before. It probably hadn't happened since if somebody won back-to-back college tournaments by 8 shots. And so, again, back to Coach Reagan, competition, and the guy could recruit for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you get Anthony Kim to come from Southern California, Palm Springs out to Norman, you've done a good job there already. And Anthony Kim truly is, I mean, he was a superstar, let's face it. He was an absolute superstar. And I really think the game of golf misses him. You are an actual acquaintance of Anthony. So let's talk about him real quick before we get off this subject. Anthony, who Jim Reagan got to Norman, uber talented. I mean, crazy talented. Pablo Martin, when you said that he finished second, he did. He was the college player of the year that year. He didn't finish outside the top 8, was by far the best record that year in college golf. Pablo was. And Pablo looked at the scoreboard and said, Anthony Kim, 8 under. He said, and when he was 9 under, I don't have 8 more birdies in me. I just don't. There's not 8 more birdies in me. How did that guy shoot that? So uber talented, like crazy talented. And there's got to be something from the time you spent with him that you think made him so special. I know he was competitive, but what made that Anthony Kim so special?
Well, and on the note of that Houston tournament where Pablo mentioned that, as you can look in the golf records, Anthony went on to win the tour event there as well. So kind of a side note, if you will. He won the Houston Open by a shot or 2, I believe. But, you know, I did get to spend some time around Anthony. You know, I was there in Norman when he got there, and mutual friends and guys at the golf course and all that. I've stayed in touch loosely over the years since he was playing, and then not. But for him, I mean, Coach, you've seen just about everybody, and I've seen a few of them. But people ask me about Anthony a lot. He's kind of an enigma, if you will. He's one of those kind of folklore guys because you got to see a little piece of it, a little bit, kind of like they talked about with Marcus Dupree at OU, the tailback.
Yeah,
his 30 for 30 was the best that never was. But Anthony, you know, had a lot of success on tour. We all know that he boat raced Sergio in the Ryder Cup 7-5 or 7-6, whatever it was. You know, as what we would probably call a career highlight. 11 birdies at Augusta in one round. He shot 65 that round, I believe. But with Anthony, you know, when you look at a golfer and you watch him enough or pay attention enough to his game, number one, in college, he worked at the game hard, like his practice sessions and you know, the way that he went about his business was very pro-like, if you will. And so the talent was there, but he worked hard at it, and he was very, very driven. You know, a lot like my college roommate and best buddy Hunter Haas. You know, a little bit of the chip on the shoulder mentality of, you know, I'm not from here, but I'm here, and I'm going to show you guys. You know, and they were both able to do that in college and in the pro game. But with Anthony, you know, watching him through a little bit through college and then as a pro, I believe his last tour event was in March of 2012 when he went down with a wrist or an elbow injury. And then, you know, as fate would have it, he hasn't been back since. But nothing looked hard for Anthony. High, low, left, right, lob wedge, bump and run, bunker shots, whatever it was, you know, he could just do it. And as we all know, there's a lot of great players in the world, but there's only a handful of guys that make every shot, every direction, every trajectory, every speed look easy. And Anthony had all those shots. And also, Coach, obviously you're being a good putter yourself. You know, Anthony's ball, you know, putting wise, a 10 or 15 footer, you know, his ball went into the hole like Tiger's did in his prime, as far as, you know, when a 12 footer was 5 or 6 feet from the hole, it was going in there with some speed, and you knew 5 feet out, it was going right in the middle of the hole. Mm-hmm. And as we all know who follow golf, there's not a lot of guys that putt like that. You know, Ricky has, as you mentioned, Ricky's got speed like that. But there's not a lot of guys whose ball just pours into the hole, and there's never a doubt that it's going in. And so, you know, putting wise, obviously the success that Anthony had, he was a great putter. But like I said, you never know what's in a guy's head or heart, you know, what drives him completely. But Anthony surely had that for whatever reasons those were. The time that, you know, when he turned pro, what was it, about 5 or 6 years out on tour, He jumped out his first pro tournament. I can recall was at the event in San Antonio at Lock and Terre, and he finished second. Right out of the gate, second is, I believe, his first start. So, I mean, he put the world on notice early on, and like I said, we got to see a little snippet of it. And as a friend and an acquaintance of him, I'm glad that he's happy in his life, and I hear that he's doing well. But as a fan of the game, I'll never get over the fact that we didn't get to see his talent and his ability on display for 15, 20, 25 years. I'll never get over it. I tell people that all the time. I want the guy to be happy. I want him in his own personal life, because that's the most important thing. But as a fan of the game, there just aren't many like him. And you knew it, I knew it. The people out on the tour that saw him knew it. But it's just the way that the path went for him.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, he is a happy guy, so I guess that's going to be more important than whether the fandom gets what they wanted or not. But I will say this: I think the game would have been more interesting with Anthony Kim in it the last 10 years, for sure.
2,000%. That's correct.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, before we head on, I have a couple other things I want to ask about the NCAA the PGA Championship this week. But we really haven't talked much about your national championship. I mean, did you go in thinking I'm going to win a national championship as a coach, or did you go in because you loved coaching and wanted to help guys? I mean, how did that look for you? Because it's like you had a lot of success in the 2 years you coached. Pretty amazing.
Well, early on, coach, as you know, when I got hired, I didn't know anything about the administration side, the budget side, the recruiting side. I knew the game of golf, and I knew I could most likely help whatever talent we had, become better. And David Lynn, Coach Lynn, who's now the head coach and athletic director at Oklahoma Christian in Edmond, I took over for him. He was there 9 years. I coached 2 years, and he took back over me immediately. In fact, they're playing for a national championship today as we speak on the D2 level, and wishing them the best. I haven't looked to see how that's going, but hopefully they're going to win that. If not, obviously a great year. But I just didn't want to screw up, and so, at the start, I lost sleep a lot of nights. Like, did I forget about this, or how am I going to do that? But, as luck would have it, I had a great, admin that worked at Oklahoma Christian. Her name was Julie Anderson, who treated me like a son, to help me on all the things I didn't know what I was doing, which was a lot. But I knew I had to raise some money so we could eat steak. I knew we had to get some good clothes. And I knew I had to, if we're going to go on a flight, we had to leave early enough to where we would make the flight. And, fortunately, when I got there, I had a couple of guys that came, one in particular as a freshman that I got through a relationship at the D1 level that couldn't get into school. So he came to me for a year. Coach Lynn had a lot of talent that he had recruited. They had a lot of success in the past. And so, my first year, we were able to squeak out the national championship there at TPC at Deer Run, which was, man, it's up there in my top couple of golf highlights, in my career as far as what I've been involved in, way more than anything I ever did as a player. And, that memory, and obviously a couple with Talor, have been way up top as far as the golf arena on memories. And so second year, which would have been the spring of 2010, we finished runner-up there at TBC at Deer Run to Oklahoma City University, which Kyle Blazer, I believe, won, 10, 11 national championships
11,
before he retired?
11. Yep.
Yeah. Nobody did it better. What was interesting for me is a number of young men that I had watched growing up, being a little bit older, were on that team at OCU. Taylor Artman and Ben Bench. Ben and Sam were actually grade school buddies and grew up together. So I had known Ben outside of coaching, and I watched Taylor Artman grow up in Norman at Jimmy Austin, in my years of college and after. And so I was coaching against those guys, and obviously hated to lose by 3 or 4 shots, I think it was. But, I was happy for those guys that they were able to get a ring and hoist the trophy for their team. And like I said, looking back on it, I just smile because it was such a great time. It was great memories. It helped me a lot in my early 30s grow up as a human being and understand and planning and all the little things, Coach, that about that go into college golf coaching and managing, young people and expectation and travel and budget and fundraising and all the things that go along. So again, as much as I hope I helped Oklahoma Christian and we had some success, that 2 years there helped me a tremendous amount as a young man to grow up.
Well, and that's what we coaches are trying to do, trying to have people grow up in our presence as we are mentoring them or taking them through their path, just helping them grow up. It's a good thing. Well, I remember that time because I remember a few phone calls you and I had.
Sure.
Just you would have questions because it was the first time you were doing it. And
Sure.
I kind of thought you should be doing this for a long time, but fate had a different plan for you. So that's okay. And you're doing great now. So
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. Well, let's talk a little bit before I'm going to do a speed round with you that just takes I haven't prepared you for that, but before we move on, I just want to ask about the PGA Championship this week. If Talor doesn't win, okay, and I think he could win this week. I mean, he's right there.
Sure.
If Talor doesn't win, who do you think might win?
Obviously I always root for Talor, but other than that, the week starting out and the kind of way the last couple of weeks have gone, the golf course that it is, and what we call somebody's due. I told a good buddy of mine on Monday night that my pick was Justin Thomas. I know that he's leading, but my best buddy could vouch for that on Monday night. I think JT is about due for one. I thought Jordan Spieth, I'm not sure what he's doing, but I thought he would play really well this week because he's been in pretty good form recently. And Max Homa and Talor have gotten to be really good friends. I've got to spend some time around Max and his caddy Joe, who's a great player in his own right. So I root for Max, each week as well.
Well, that's a pretty good players you picked there. And if you truly thought JT was going to win before the week, you're a prognosticator. You do a pretty good job of that because he is leading right now. I'm looking at the leaderboard right now. So,
but like I say, it's early. It's only Friday afternoon. We got a lot of real estate to cover.
We do, and I think that's good for Talor because he's got to pick up a little bit of real estate. He's 1 under par. I think the leaders are at 6, so that's kind of exciting. Right. I look back on it and I've watched. This will be the first major at Southern Hills that I actually haven't been on site since the 1970 PGA when I went over there as a 10-year-old. So I've got great memories of being at Southern Hills, watching championship golf. And I think it will probably yield a really great victory, a great winner, an exciting finish this week, I'm hoping. And maybe Talor, an Oklahoma born and bred kid who grew up in Oklahoma, maybe he can figure out a way to hold a Wanamaker trophy on Sunday afternoon.
That'd be great. Whew,
that'd be great. That would be great. And I'm really, really thankful that you're helping him with that foundation. I think that's great. Talor has come, like I said, miles, and the fact that he's got a foundation now to help kids is fantastic. So
thank you.
Kelsey, good job. Can you handle a speed round?
You bet.
All right. Well, let's see if you can. We'll just see it. Chipotle or Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A.
Shawshank Redemption or Remember the Titans?
Shawshank.
Atta boy. I like Shawshank. How about favorite all-time pro athlete and why?
Oh, man. Favorite all-time pro athlete and why? Man,
mine's Ben Hogan for all the reasons you know. Go ahead.
We got to come back to that one, man. That's
okay. Wow. We'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. You have a chance to watch one event and only one event. Is it OU winning the national football title or Mustang High School winning the state football title?
I got to go with OU.
Okay. All right.
I've got a good buddy in Norman, my buddy Big Chris, he's inching towards 50, and he told me here in the last couple of years, Kels, can we just get one more before our time comes? Let us just get one more. So for my buddy Big Chris, I got to go with OU.
All right, sounds good. Biggest thrill or accomplishment in your golf career?
Watching Talor win the RSM Classic in the fall. I wasn't able to be there live, but I watched obviously the final round, and for all that has gone into that would be my highlight of golf.
I love it. That's fantastic. Most famous person you've had dinner with?
Mike McGraw.
Thank you. Favorite major memory to watch? You watched it on television, you watched it in person. Favorite major?
I did get a chance. Talor was nice enough to invite me to the Masters this year. Was there the whole week and got to walk every step with him. And so for all the obvious reasons, and he played great, finished tied 14th in his first walk around Augusta. That would be it for me.
Excellent. Okay, dream foursome, you and three others. Who are they going to be?
Man, myself, my best buddy Mark Van Hoos,
Okay.
my barbecue tour 2-man partnership. I'm going to say obviously Talor would be in there, and I'm going to throw Tiger. I'm going to throw Tiger in there because that's who Hoos would want me to pick. So I'm going to throw Tiger in there for Hoos.
Well, since I know Tiger's a loyal listener to Better Than I Found It, he'll probably be giving you a call. Okay. So
absolutely. I hope he does.
Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I hope you enjoy the PGA Championship, and I hope you're there with Talor on Sunday afternoon. Now this will be airing on Monday, the day after. So let's see what kind of a soothsayer are you.
Well, like I said, if that takes place in our home state at Southern Hills, you can't write any book that would be that good.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Kelsey, for joining. I look forward to hearing from you often, as we do text a lot, but I do appreciate you taking the time to be on Better Than I Found It today.
You bet. Thanks, Coach.